with title searches is the topic. So I'm going to let her start. Susan, you have the floor, ma'am.
Here we go. Good morning. How's everyone? I think what I'm going to talk about is old news to most people, but I do want to just cover some things that come up more often than you would expect that turn out to be a surprise when we do the title search, things that were unexpected when the listing agent took the listing. So one big one that comes up, I don't know, probably about once a month is the contract comes or you get the listing appointment. Sometimes you ferret this out sooner than contract. But you're approached by one person. It's the husband, the man. And you're saying, well, the tax records show two people, what happened to her? And usually the answer is, well, in our separation agreement, we're divorced. And in the separation agreement, it says that I would get the property. So that's why I can sell it. And the problem with that is, does anybody think that actually is enough in your experience, that just having the separation agreement is adequate to transfer the title to the property to the husband? I guess I wouldn't, right? It isn't, or else I wouldn't be bringing this up. You have to have a deed to transfer title. There are other ways. Someone can die, title can be transferred by will, or title can be transferred pursuant to certain types of court order. But in 99% of the cases, you have to have a deed. So what do we do in this situation to fix it? We have to go back to the seller, to the wife, and get her to sign a deed at that point to convey her interest to the husband. And most of the time, that's not a problem. The ex-spouse knows that they're obligated to do it. But you can envision circumstances where they don't want to do it. There's a child support arrearage. There's some other reason why, they feel like they want to hold out on the husband and not sign the deed. If they didn't sign the deed, or if we couldn't find the person, it could ultimately involve having to go back to court, which would cost a lot of money. So if you ever have a client who's in the middle of a divorce, make sure that they know they have to get a deed signed before you can take their listing. And if you need a deed done, we can do it at our office. We do it a lot for people who didn't realize they needed it. So another situation that comes up from time to time, someone has filed, they have a first and second mortgage on their house. They filed bankruptcy, and then say 5 or 6 years later, they go to sell the house. And they've not been making payments on that second deed of trust because they included it in their bankruptcy petition as being a discharged debt. So the debt was discharged. They haven't been making payments on it, but there is still a deed of trust against the property for that second mortgage. So do you think that what would your instinct be? Would your instinct be, well, we don't have to worry about that because it was discharged in bankruptcy? That's what most people think. But the problem is there's a difference between the lien on the title and the underlying debt. So you can have the underlying debt discharged, but that does absolutely nothing to get the lien off the title to the property. So what do we do in that situation? The title search has come in, you're already under contract. The seller has represented that they have, enough money to pay everything off at closing. Well, what we typically would have to do, assuming there's enough equity in the property, is we order a payoff statement, and they have to pay that entire debt, including all of the interest that accrued over, however many years it's been since they last made a payment. The other option is if there's not enough equity, they could actually convert the transaction. They might have to do a short sale because there's not enough to pay that debt. And rarely they could go back to bankruptcy court, reopen the bankruptcy case, and file something called an adversary proceeding to request the court to discharge that lien from the title of the property. But as you can imagine, that costs lots of money and time to do. So just a word to the wise, not that anybody here is filing bankruptcy, but just know that it does not get liens off title unless the court specifically orders the lien to be released. And that's an extra expense and an extra step in somebody's bankruptcy proceeding. Another one, and I don't know if Holly's on the call or not, but this is actually something that's happening right now. Sometimes you'll have, we do the title search and we find an instrument called a UCC financing statement, Uniform Commercial Code financing statement. And it's like it is a lien, but it only has a 5-year effectiveness, whereas a mortgage has a much longer effectiveness, a deed of trust, a longer effectiveness against the property. And you'll see a UCC often when someone has gotten replacement windows or they put in a water softener if they're in an area which has bad water, and they finance the purchase price for that. And sometimes they don't realize that that's not just an unsecured debt. There is some sort of a lien, and it's buried in the fine print of the paperwork they signed authorizing the finance company to place a lien against the property, and that lien would allow them to enforce if there was a default on the debt, the finance company could enforce it against the real estate, not just sue to collect the debt. So what do? A lot of people are like, well, I'll just go take the water softener out, or I'll remove the solar panels. But that's easier said than done. They are fixtures usually at that point if you've not removed them before the listing. It could cause damage to the property in some cases to try to take the things out. And then the lien is, I mean, unless you pay it off, the finance company's not going to release the lien. So usually the solution on that is to get a payoff statement and pay it off at closing. And then the question in a transaction someone in your office has is whether or not the buyer could actually agree to assume that debt. And I would recommend if the buyer does want, for example, to take over the financing for the solar panels or the water softener system, contact the lender and make sure that the lender, that loan would allow a subordinate debt that we all know about at closing to be on the property. On FHA, I know you can't do it because they don't allow any secondary debt, but I don't know about other types of financing. So it's something you'd want to ask the lender. So that's another surprise lien that can show up. The last thing I wanted to mention, and those of you who've been in the business a while will have run across this, it's when the title search shows up a lien against a former owner of the property, either a deed of trust or a judgment or an IRS lien. Sometimes it's unclear whether it is the person, but other times it's absolutely clear because it has the address of the judgment debtor or the property is the one described in the deed of trust. That instrument takes priority over any later liens, like it would take priority over the mortgage that the buyer is getting to buy is using to buy the property. So it's got to be taken care of in some way in order to close. There are several solutions to this. Sometimes you can, quite often, we have the seller provide their owner's title insurance policy, and then we provide that to the buyer's title company, and the buyer's title company in many cases will agree to indemnify over the old owner's deed of trust. Sometimes people say, well, I can't find my title policy, or I didn't buy a title policy, I waived owner's title insurance, or I inherited this property and there's no policy out there. If that happens, then you have to, they're going to have to pay me, or they're going to have to pay a release tracking company or some attorney to do some investigation, some sleuthing, or they can do it themselves. You find out who handled the previous closing or whichever closing where it should have been paid off. You try to get paperwork showing it was paid off. You try to contact the lien holder and get them to release the lien. And that can all go on for a long time because sometimes these things really have been paid off and they've been archived, and it takes 6 weeks to get a response. And then the worst thing would be if you had to file, the seller had to file suit to have the lien released because the creditor either wouldn't cooperate or couldn't be found. So those were just 4 examples. The ex-spouse being on title still, a junior lien that the seller thought was over because of the bankruptcy, the UCC financing statement situation, and then the former owner lien. Those are some surprises that come up on title work that people don't expect that we have to deal with. And I just wanted to give you those kind of in a nutshell so that just to help you be knowledgeable about it, if you happen to be the agent either for the buyer or the seller in that scenario, you'll be familiar with that type of thing coming up. So I think that's all I wanted to mention today. Sandra, did you have anything to chip in? Sandra Bleedle from my office is on the call too. Or does anyone have any questions? It can be totally unrelated to this, or it can be related if you want it to be. Okay. If there are no questions, I don't have anything else to say. Sandra,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just getting ready to say, can we go, were you involved in the whole solar panel thing with Holly? Yeah.
Which one, the solar thing? Yeah,
Yeah.
It's still ongoing. Mhm.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about that, just so everybody knows, because it is a little convoluted, but it's also very typical of solar panels as to what's happened. Do you mind just talking about that for a minute?
Yeah, it's still unresolved. Yeah, in Holly's transaction, if she was here, I'd get her to describe it. But oh, hi Holly, how are you? so oh, you're right there. So thankfully, Holly's sellers knew that they had financed it, right, Holly? And they provided you with the paperwork.
Yes, the sad part about this transaction, one, he's got some really expensive solar panels. And then in addition to that, he was struggling just to get the company to even communicate with us. So that makes it really difficult because obviously we want to disclose to the other side, this is what we got going on. But I was very limited on the information I had, but I called them every single day until they finally responded to me. But yes, he knew he had the solar panels ahead of time. He's only had the house for a little over a year. The solar panels got installed earlier this year. It's a 24-year agreement. It's not like a quick, easy payoff.
Yeah, they are usually financed for a really long
time. And if they're installed properly, they work properly, supposedly, they're supposed to pay themselves, right? That's the idea. But how do you pitch and sell that to a new buyer, especially a military buyer who's only going to be here for 3 to 5 years? Because it's a pain in the butt. And more importantly, what I was looking for with the unknowns, is the proper verbiage. And Susan came through on that because I was like, how do I get them to commit to something that we don't have all the information on versus using it as an ability to be like, well, you didn't tell us. Because if the house didn't have solar panels, I could have sold it like 50 times over. But it takes a special buyer for it. And we're at the very beginning. We just ratified it over the weekend. And yeah, good luck, Susan.
Yeah, the problem is going to be, as I've thought about that scenario more, I mean, I don't know if the buyer, even if the buyer is eager, willing, wanting to do their part to, help with the climate or whatever, and they are willing and eager to assume that financing, I'm not sure if their lender will allow them to do it or not. And that could end up tanking the deal. If the lender says, no, you cannot do this, even if it's a subordinate arrangement, we are not going to allow you to do this. That's going to be a problem. And we don't know that yet. We're too early into the transaction. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that had sort of inspired my comment about the UCC financing statements. So, yeah.
I think $250 a month. It covers the solar panels and some kind of solar battery that's like a generator for the house.
Is that saving money on their electric bill then?
Yeah, currently right now he does not get a bill from Dominion and he does get a credit, and his credit does vary, and we expect to see an increase in the winter time because his heating is ran off of gas, but he genuinely hasn't even had the solar panels long enough to really know how solid of an investment this was.
Because that 250 is much higher than my electric bill.
Yes, yes, so his credit runs anywhere from like $12 to $60 that I've seen so far. Now, when they first, exactly, he's literally at a break even, and it's one of those things where is the next buyer gonna see the value? Because the value really in this particular situation is from the battery. Like if he would have bought that stupid battery, thinking, oh, if electricity goes out, I can run my whole house because I got my little generator. That was stupid.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, he would have been better off with just solar panels and would probably make a lot more money, and it would look much better. But they got him.
Interesting, yeah. And then, the idea is that if you keep your house for however, 15 years, right, then you wouldn't have an electric bill after that, or you would with very minuscule. But I mean, that is a long time. So the only time that a solar panel really actually benefits him is if it's paid off. When you're purchasing a home where it's paid off, right? Yeah, that's when it's a real benefit. But yeah, you have to go through. Just remember, it's not one where it's just like, okay, well, it has solar panel. Let's just not look into this.
You never look into that. I'm not 100% sure, but 99% that's going to be the case. You're not buying battery, you're not buying solar panel. The 250 is only the interest you're paying on that whole equipment.
So
Look into that.
yeah, when the way that they explained it to me, the way they explained it to him when they got him was that he was not only going to be not paying an electric bill, but that Dominion was going to be paying him. So he was supposed to not only be breaking even, but making money. But they got him. Like, that's not the case. At least it's not the case from what we can see, because we're going off the numbers and stuff like that. At the very beginning, we tried to argue and get them to remove the solar panels at their cost because they were not upholding their promises. And then they send somebody out there to fix whatever, and then all of a sudden magically he's getting credit from Dominion. So it's been very challenging, but 24 years
If you are
and
supplying back to the grid,
huh?
you will only get a credit if you are supplying back to the grid.
That's
So
right,
that
yes,
depends
that's
on
correct.
your
That's the
consumption.
only way you get
But
credit.
you don't land up owning battery or panel. The 250 is the interest you are paying on that equipment. So
So
these
you
guys
say
are
even after
scamming.
the 24 years he's not gonna own a panel?
No.
Are you sure?
Look into it.
Depends how they structure them.
9 out of 10,
Yeah.
or 9.5 out of 10 of these plans are scamming people.
Yeah.
And
Oh, they
they're
definitely got him. I'm not gonna argue that whatsoever, but if he's not gonna own the panels after 24 years, what are they gonna?
look
Okay, so
into it,
after
ask, find out.
24 years, what are they gonna do? Come back and get the panels? Or is
Uh,
it gonna be
yeah.
So it might be an option to buy now.
Or they might be obsolete.
Yeah.
It's like your phone.
It's like, I
Yeah.
was gonna say,
It's
another
definitely
damn
gonna be
cell phone
obsolete in
company.
24
Hold on, it looks like Susan wants to say something. I
Sorry,
can see it.
Yeah, if you have a client who's contemplating doing solar panels, they need to check into how much equity they have in the house, because I think what's being illustrated by what you all are talking about is this is a long-term investment. I certainly, if someone asked me about it, I would scrutinize them carefully before they did it, because it's the finance company, the solar panel company is wanting to make money. I mean, that's their ultimate goal. They're not out there to try to help people. And I hope this is not being recorded. It probably is. But I mean, it's just like financing anything else.
It is, but I'll make sure that part's not on there.
Yeah,
I'm making a note right now on the screen.
but we didn't give any names, so I think we're okay. But I mean, it's just,
Okay.
my gut feeling is it wasn't a good move for these people, because it is a long-term investment. And they're not going to be there long-term, and they don't have enough equity to pay this off. And it didn't
Yeah.
improve the value of the property that much. So, I appreciate their wanting to help the world, but it's not helping them at this moment. So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they wanted to help their pockets, not really the world. That was just a bonus. But just so y'all know, to remove the panels was gonna cost the seller $14,000 to remove the panels. And they
And
were not
cost-
gonna repair the roof.
Yeah.
They were just gonna be, hey, your roof's gonna have holes in it, you're gonna fix that afterwards. and they were still gonna be responsible for the lien would not have been released, you would have still been responsible for that, so.
Which leads us to believe what Nash is saying, that you're paying on interest only, not the equipment. If that lien was not gonna be satisfied by returning the equipment, that leads me to believe that there is more to that financing than a normal thing that meets the eye. It's not like your car.
So
You paid your
maybe
72
don't
months to
get
pay.
solar panels.
Don't finance solar panels to the company trying to sell them to you, is the moral of the story. You can finance solar panels, go get your own loans for
Take your,
It's
just crazy. It makes me not want ever to have solar panels, and I used to want solar panels.
I've never wanted them. I had this happen when I was first starting. I'll never buy solar panels, me personally, but
I think they look ugly.
yeah. All right, Susan, anything else you can think of before we let you go?
No, that's it for me. Unless you had any questions, Thomasina, then I'm good to go. And again, we love working with you guys, and I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We love working with you as well, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Carla, you are up next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so a couple of things. I've noticed we're getting a lot more listings turned in on Friday afternoons, which makes it kind of hard for Caitlin to get them all inputted. Oops, sorry, I have a helper today. To get them all in and approved and the photos uploaded and active before 5 o'clock. So if you could try to make sure to get them turned in to her a little earlier on Fridays, that would be greatly appreciated. Secondly, referrals. I'm still getting transactions turned in that say there's a referral, but I'm not seeing the referral agreement uploaded on the referral checklist. So if you could be mindful of that so that we can get everything inputted correctly in our systems, greatly appreciated. Third,
You're up now.
we do have a lot of events coming up, and it takes a lot of time to text and call to find out if you can make it or not. And a lot of times we do need a head count because we have a vendor who is supplying tickets or food. So if you could just reply always, either letting us know if you can make it or if you cannot, that would be extremely helpful. Sorry, somebody is really liking this business meeting and she seems to have a lot to say. She really loves Susan. So that's all that I have.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right, Lucy, you can come up if you want to, or I can. Well, I mean, you don't have to, but I can like do this. I'm connected, so I can't bring it to you. I'm connected.
Good morning, everybody. I'm actually here live and in person. Who knew?
You don't miss everybody that's there virtually.
I want to piggyback on a couple things that Carla said. First and foremost, get your listings in early. You can meet with people over the weekend. You can have all the documents signed. You can have it set to go live on Wednesday, and you can still turn everything in, submit it, have it reviewed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm happy to review all your stuff. If you do that, you have all of the paperwork where their signature is and where the date is signed for the day they actually sign the paperwork. However, on that center section on your SLA, your effective date and your expiration date, that's the date it goes into the MLS and the date it comes out of the MLS, okay? Then your disclosures need to match those dates, not the date everything was signed. So your DPOR, your ACUs, your lead-based paint match your effective listing date and your expiration date if necessary. Everything else is signed and dated the date you meet with the people to sign the paperwork. Upload everything, all the documents, don't hold anything back, have it all submitted, and then it's ready to go well in advance. Caitlin and Carla can put it into the MLS as incomplete and be ready to hit go on Friday. You're saving them a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort.
Yep.
So get your stuff in early. Don't even wait till Friday morning. I want to see your listings for Friday submitted Wednesday or Thursday for approval. That way you can approve all the paperwork. You can fix anything that needs fixing and know you're good to go for Friday to hit it running, okay?
Do we upload photos or do you give it to them?
You upload your photos. But your listing has to be live to upload the photos. So if you want to be able to do that, if you have everything turned in advance and they've got it as incomplete, they can say to you, it's in as incomplete, go check it. And then when it goes live, they'll notify you and you put your photos in and you're on the ground running. Yep. Okay.
Actually, that's incorrect. You can actually upload your photos in your incomplete listing.
Stacy would know. Stacy does it all the time.
I was like, where is that voice from God?
Hi, Stacy.
The only thing we can't do is our disclosures. Those have to be done once the listing goes live.
Okay, so there you go, from the voice of experience, who says you can have all of it done incomplete, and when they hit go, you're going.
And Stacy is our top listing specialist. She got the award last year, the year before, I know. I'm sure there's more, I wasn't here, but she's our top listing specialist, so she knows exactly how and what to do with everything.
Yep. And Stacy always has her stuff turned in beforehand.
She is one of the top 5 people that Lucy and I say have perfect paperwork.
Yeah, I very rarely have to talk to Stacy.
We're gonna have a word for that this year, seriously.
Cool.
We talk about it all the time, so we're having a list this year. You're in the top 10.
And then to piggyback again on Carla with the referrals, keep in mind that with your referral agreement, we need W-9s. If we're sending money to another company, we have to have a W-9 from them on file. If you are sending a referral to someone else, you have to send our W-9 to them so you can get your money.
And our W-9 is in Brokerment that you can send to me to sign. It's already pre-filled, you have to send it to me to sign, so it has the date, and you're able to send it to me.
So it's not just a referral agreement. It's a fully signed referral agreement along with the signed W-9 on both sides of the deal. You get it if you're receiving the referral, you send it if you're giving the referral.
Get it in-house?
No, in-house, you don't need to worry about that.
You don't need more W-9.
In-house is,
Yep, there's an outgoing and an incoming referral checklist. Good question.
Okay.
Brokerment on the left.
one of the other things I want to bring up is I'm seeing a lot of people again asking for exemptions on documents that are not required. I'm going to ask.
As she giggles, where's my gun?
No, it's not me.
I know. That's why you're giggling.
I'm just going to ask that you please only ask for exemptions on documents that are typically required. If it's an ACUS and you've got a listing in Portsmouth, yes, ask for the exemption. If it's a survey, that's not required. And it takes me time to go in and look at the documents, verify what's there, verify what's not, and look at your exemptions and why. So if it's not required, we don't need to exempt them. They're not required.
It's not a condo, don't ask for a condo.
Yeah, because it takes time. It takes time. And anytime there is a special circumstance attached to a document or something we need to know with that document, leave a note in the comments. I get notified that there's a new comment when you do something. So let's communicate, let's make sure the comments are there. And not only for our internal communication, but it's also a record of what's gone on with that document and if we've got some special circumstances that we're watching. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me?
So everybody sees the comments that you put in
No,
there?
the admin sees the comments.
No one can see your check, they don't have a log. Unless you make it on the card.
Ninesh can't see your stuff.
Just me, Lucy, and, no, me and Lucy, the admin, and then your mentor should be on the.
I feel like I would probably prefer it that way.
Well, and the other thing along with that is there are 100 of you. There's one of me. I don't have time to go play in your sock drawer. Okay. So if you don't submit it, it's recorded. If you don't submit it, I can't review it. Okay, submit, 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 submit. If you don't submit, I will not review. Once I review things, if you get things returned, please try to get in the habit of fixing documents within a 48-hour period. Otherwise, you get busy, you get distracted, and here we are at closing, and I'm saying, yeah, well, remember that document 3 months ago I told you needed to be fixed? It still needs to be fixed, I'm sorry. And then everybody's angry.
If you don't hit submit, it's not legit.
Oh,
So
I love that.
If you don't submit, it's not legit. So another thing, don't hit submit one at a time. I know we keep saying it, but for real, we get lots and lots of notifications, like, well, it's here, it's there, don't do that. Just wait till they're all done and then submit all at the top.
Yeah, if you're doing a purchase and you know your buyer is waiving the inspection, don't ask for an exemption on the pickup because you know they're not going to use it. I'm going to send it back to you as rejected, stating I don't have a ratified contract to back up this document. So now we've both wasted time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not trying to, really, the time that we're saving you guys the same amount of time. It's just you're saving us the time's up.
Right.
We're saving you individually because you have to do that too, right? It takes you time to do as well. So.
Because then once I send it back to you, well, now you're going to have to take the time to resubmit that document individually as well. So.
Can you go back to that with the waive the inspection? How do you want the?
When you submit the entirety of the ratified contract, it will simply not have a PICA in it because they have waived their home inspection. So when you get to that form on your checklist that says required, you simply state in the comments, home inspection waived, no contingency, and hit submit for the exemption. And it'll come through and I'll review it all at once.
Waive is not the same thing as its original purpose. So.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that today, actually, and Susan's gonna cover the next meeting.
Okay. Does anybody virtually or here have any questions for me?
What do you mean by ratified?
That's great,
Ratified.
right? I mean, it's actually, I mean, I
That's a
didn't.
good question. What is
The new
Every,
agents, yeah.
every page of every part of the contract is signed. All the terms are agreed to, and the front box on the front page of your purchase agreement has been signed and dated by one of the agents. All changes are initialed, all terms are agreed to, all documents are initialed and signed, and that front page box is signed and dated by one of the agents. And it has been delivered to the other side.
Yep.
Okay?
We good? Yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Let me make sure the chat. Nope, nothing in the chat. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lucy. Thank you.
Sarah, are you still on here? Sarah Dodson. There you are.
Sorry, my computer
That's
was
okay.
slow. Good
That's
morning.
all right. Good morning. You have the floor, ma'am.
Okay, and I'll make it quick. Just want to remind you all that we've got, I'm doing a CE course next Tuesday, so a week from today, the 16th at 10 a.m. It's going to be the flood insurance one, and when I'm going through it, I'm going to be hitting on all of the most recent FEMA updates that was made to the National Flood Insurance Program. So you definitely want to be on here because it's a lot of really pertinent and important information for you guys and to share with your clients as well. So again, that's next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Look forward to seeing y'all on there.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. I'm going to let Craig have, sorry, Craig, I'm just gonna pin us up here so that you can be here.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Captain Mortgage here, in case you didn't know. So thank you to everybody that came out to our wine event that we had, the Wine Fest. We got another cool event coming up here this Saturday at the ODU tailgate. I have not looked at the weather, so don't tell me if it's bad or good. We're going to be in the blue lot, which is the WHRO lot on Hampton Boulevard and 49th Street, space number 77. And if you have any questions, I can send you a direct link. I have sent some emails to some of you that I have your email address. So feel free to RSVP or just show up. Bring 1, bring 10 friends. I don't
How
care.
do we RSVP?
It's on Eventbrite. Like I said, I know I sent you a link
Yeah.
for sure.
Uh-huh.
I can, maybe if you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I was thinking if we could do that, if we could put it in the chat. So if you, text it to me when you get back to your seat, and then I'll put it in the chat, guys, just so it's on there, and then I'll put it up on the screen when we're done, so that you can all see it as well.
It'll be a good time. You don't have to go to the game. Just come drink a couple beers. Obviously we'll have food, and it'll just be a good time.
I'll put it on the Facebook group too.
For sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now we got the cool stuff out of the way. I like to do lessons learned with a lender. I call it triple L. So whenever I have certain things that happen, I'm like, damn, that could have really killed this deal, or damn, it did kill this deal. I like to try and share with as many people as I can. So that being said, the most recent one that I had, it didn't kill the deal, but it definitely delayed it. It was actually a deal with a real estate agent. It was not my real estate agent or anybody on my team. It was just through the pipeline, somebody with Tidewater that was a real estate agent who's been a real estate agent for 10 years or more. And they made that they were buying a home for themselves. They did not understand that you could not move money. Now, I don't know how many new, old, young, old, whatever agents we have in this room or on live, but you can't move money without having it tracked, okay? They said, oh, well, I have $2,000. I'll just go put it in the bank. And sorry, we can't do that. We have to track everything, whether it's coming from your retirement account or coming from your sock drawer, like we talked about earlier. I've actually had a gentleman said he had $40,000 in his sock drawer. I said, go put it in the bank and call me in 60 days. I mean, well, $10,000 at a time. That is. Anyway, so that the big picture is, if you can just share with your clients, it'll help us as lenders out and potentially not kill your deal or delay your deal 30, 60 days. So that was a big one that I learned recently. And also we talked about the broker deals, the bank statement loans, the non-qualified mortgage loans that we offer at Tidewater. One big thing that I've not just learned, but already knew, and I'm trying to reiterate, if you decided to go the bank statement route with one of your clients, the self-employed borrowers, or our favorite, the real estate agents, these are getting really popular with real estate agents, these bank statement loans, because you do have to file your taxes, but we don't require to see them. We don't need to see your tax returns. We don't need to see the W-2s or the 1099s. We just need to see your bank statements that, hey, Holly got 10 grand in her account on Tuesday. She got another 10 grand next Friday. She made $35,000 this month, and we saw it for 24 months that she made a fat living, and she didn't have a bunch of payout. And you can go buy a $500,000 house or whatever, right? 2 years, yeah. Now they do have 12-month bank statement loans, but they take an average of the 20 in over 24 months. So, and it also incurs a little bit higher interest rate. If anybody has any questions about that, I didn't want to come in to talk about that specifically, but if you have any questions, for sure. We have different products as well. These asset qualifiers, and we have another rental income loan where it's like you have a duplex. You can actually use the rental income as part of your income to purchase that property. Not just your property, your income, but obviously your buyer. That being said, the big picture why I tell you all this, if you get a contract with me or anybody else that does this non-qualified mortgage, do not give us 30 days because it will not close on time. I promise you, because it's not Tidewater Mortgages or ABs or OVMs appraisers doing these appraisals. It's a third party that's a third party. So imagine the hell that you're going to go through, right? So big lessons learned for that one is give us greater than 30 days. I'm thinking probably close to 45 if you want it to close on time. And it also gives the listing agent the expectation of, hey, we're going to close on X date. So it's not like, oh, well, 30 days later, we had that 10-day contingency. It's now 40 days and we're still pushing the limit. We're now asking the blessing of the seller to say, hey, can you give us another 5 days because this damn appraiser is what it is, right? So that was it. Just those two lessons learned, the appraisal one and then we'll do the days before closing, moving money around. We already know, but I just try to reiterate to share with your clients.
I like it. I love whenever they come up and like tell us things that they got, because at some point we all end up with it as well.
So if you have like a very small amount of hundreds and you're using that for just like maybe a money order or something for like you can't do that with like $100 in cash.
So the way that works is this depends on the loan product as well. If it's a BHGA first time home buyer, if it's anything greater than I think like $250 or $300, they're going to ask questions on where did this money come from? And it's just a letter of explanation. It's not a game changer. It's just more work for you, me, and headache. And oh my gosh, is this going to close on time? Or is it going to close at all? Because This person just put $1,000 in this account. I used the joke like, hey, like it's football season. Someone was like to bet on football. If they see $1,000 that went from me to Blake on Monday, and then 2 weeks later on that Monday, because I lost another $500, and I sent it to Blake, like, why are you sending Blake $1,000 and $500? You know, or vice versa. They're going to ask him, why are you getting $1,500? Because that could ultimately kill the deal on a VHDA product because there are income limits. I hope I answered your question correctly.
So cash apps, Venmos, just money has I've nowhere just deposit into your account.
Yep. Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, PayPal. That's my 4. And when I send the request for documents, my very first one, I've got it highlighted, all those 4 things in a separate color highlight. So at least hopefully that pops out to the borrower that they'll, hey, most of it. Because there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of information on those emails. And 90% of people, unless they're an engineer or a doctor, are not going to read the email. So I try to highlight the super important stuff, like documents need to be in a PDF, not a screenshot. And like we just talked about.
So, but you will take the statements for like Cash App or Venmo, central bank statement. But some small businesses, they don't even put it in the bank. They just Cash App payments back and forth.
To answer your question, as long as we can source it, we need to be able to source it. So if it is a small business, then that's a little bit different situation because they're going to have tax returns probably and things of that sort.
So, but if they have like tax returns and like a Cash App statement,
For sure. Yeah, we just need, we need to know where it came from. And, you know, and if they're running a business, then obviously they're going to have $500 or $20 or $50 or whatever going into their Cash App and then going into their business bank statement.
What you're speaking of is just out of nowhere, it's just this deposit that is the account.
Thank you.
And it's unexplained.
Well, it's like we needed $1,000 or whatever for that agent to do whatever they needed to do. And they're like, oh, well, I'll just go transfer money from my whatever account. No, we can't do that because if you do that, now we need your whatever, your other savings account. We need 60 days of bank statements for that because we need to source the income. And it's an anti-fraud, antitrust thing. It's not a title or mortgage thing. It's like a federal government thing. Because after like I believe it's part of the 9/11 bill where it's like part of anti-terrorism, things of that sort. You can't go buy a house with cash with the down payment and all that crap because of the anti-terrorism stuff.
Can you also speak really quickly, because I've run into this a couple times lately, the fact that you're young, first time maybe home buyer, doesn't have their $500 or $1,000, but you have to give mom wires the money for the.
So that's where it gets really sticky because if it's an FHA loan, they're a little bit more strict on, they're a little bit more strict on who can give money. If you ever have questions on, hey, I'm doing an FHA loan, whether it's VHDA or not, I want to get money from my cousin. Okay, well, it's probably not going to happen on an FHA loan. Conventional, we could probably get it done. That being said, the biggest one is the baby mama, baby daddy. Well, we live together. We have a child together. I want to get money from my son's mom to $1,000 for the EMD or for cash to close. FHA loans do not like that. They do not like the mother or the son's mother or you know what I mean? Baby mom, baby dad, whatever. They don't like that. Yeah, they don't like that unless they're married. Even if they're engaged, they could have been together, have a 10-year-old engaged. As long as they're not married, the FHA loans do not like it.
Just be really cognizant of where all of these funds are coming from and be able, the key is to be able to source it all. You have to back it all up with documentation.
Ultimately, yeah. Ultimately, it's my job to tell the borrower that. But if I have a great agent to say, hey, listen to your lender when they talk about anything money, anything documents, because they're the expert. We're the expert at collecting those documents.
For the EMD, that money needs to be in the account at least 30 days to 60 days prior to writing that contract.
And that's gone money. They have to understand that money has to clear the bank. They'll see it as a credit on the back end, but they need to not need that money for rent this month. That's gone money.
If they have to borrow it, they need to borrow it ahead of time.
60 days. It's all it is 60-day seasoning. Now, there are sometimes we can get it only asks for 30 days of bank statements on a certain type of Freddie product. However, I don't count on that because what if you can't get it to run Freddie and you got to go Fannie and they're going to ask for 60 days of bank statements. So we always say, we'll say the offer because here's how the process would work. You put an offer in, you get a ratified contract. I get it Monday morning. I'm going to send it to my disclosure team. They're going to send out disclosures. Once everyone signs the disclosure, it's going to get sent to underwriting. So by Wednesday, Thursday, it's probably going to be in the underwriter's inbox. They might not get to it till Monday, but I hope that kind of gives you the idea of the timeline for us.
So you
So-
have 5 days, so maybe 55 days.
Yeah, so like I just got a ratified contract. I literally just sent a request for documents because I don't have any new documents from this borrower because it took them 90 days or 60 days to find a home. So I had to send a request for new documents, new bank statements, new pay stubs. Obviously, I already had the W-2s, tax returns, and photo ID. That stuff doesn't expire. But the bank statements, pay stubs. So all I can ask is, from a lender's perspective, if you as an agent say, hey, did you get a message from the lender? And if so, make sure you fulfill that immediately because that's going to delay us from closing, potentially. Not all the time, obviously. But if you scare them, it's going to delay us from closing. Oh, yeah, I did that into you, no problem. So. Yeah, right. Cool.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry.
All right, just a few more things.
I have one quick question if I could ask him.
Wait, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just got a offer with one of my listings from actually Tidewater Mortgage, and the earnest money deposit was placed with 2 money orders. So I called the lender on the lender letter, and I asked him, I said, so do you find this to be acceptable? And of course, he mentioned about they would have to find out, where the money came from and sourced it. So I'm assuming that once the lender gets this contract, hopefully today, if there isn't, they're gonna start immediately verifying where this money came from, correct?
Correct.
You said yes.
Okay,
They want to sort the EMD. We actually have to see the EMD closing. I'm sorry, not closing, clearing the account.
right. And it would be in 2 separate amounts, which are very odd amounts, which should be fairly easy to track.
Sure.
Yes.
I just
he
wanted
said.
to make sure it wasn't an issue. I mean, I left a message for another lender last night to verify, and I hadn't heard, so.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I don't see anything in the